Dear brothers and sisters, I welcome you all to hear and see this video message. Today we are going to discuss about what is the advantage of open list proportional representation system and research on proportional representation democracies, how they are embedded in economical and social aspects. I wish and pray this kind of open list proportional representation should be adopted in our country. Research on proportional representation democracies. Aaron Hart, a world-renowned politician scientist, spent his career studying various features of democratic life in different countries. In his landmark study 2012, he compared 36 democracies over 55 years. Using World Governance Indicators and Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Hart found that proportional representation countries outperformed winner-take-all one on 16 out of 17 measures of sound government and decision making, 9 of them at a statistically significant level, including government effectiveness, equality and independence of the public service, quality of policy making, rule of law, and the level and control of corruption, including capture of the state by the elite interests. Looking at a number of specific indicators, Hart concludes that consensual democracies are kinder, gentler democracies. Among his findings about proportional representation, his voter turnout was higher by 7.5 percentage points when contextual factors are taken into account. Citizens were more satisfied with performance of their country's democratic institution even when the party they voted for was not in power. The share of women elected as legislator was 8 percentage points higher. Scores were higher on measures of political participation and civil liberties. Women in politics on open list proportional system democracies. The tendency of proportional representation countries to elect more women compared to winner-take-all countries. They allow more women to be elected because parties will want to put forward a diversified slate of candidates to reach a wider range of voters. Women in winner-take-all countries like Canada, the US, and the UK currently make up about 30% of women in parliament in comparison to PR countries such as New Zealand, Sweden, Spain and Switzerland, which have recently elected from 42% to 48% of women as per Inter-Parliamentary Union 2021. Proportional representation also improves the ability of younger people to be elected as legislators. Using data from 128 countries, the Inter-Parliamentary Union found that youth representation in legislature was 15 to 20% higher with proportional representation system compared to majoritarian systems. Economic performance of proportional representation democracies. Once a government is formed by a single party, a winner-take-all system makes it easier for lobbyists to win special consideration due to the concentration of government power that results. This stands in contrast to the sort of consensus-based governance system that every vote counts and politicians have to work together in making policy. When considering the economic performance of countries using different systems, countries with moderately proportional systems were more fiscally responsible and more likely to enjoy fiscal surplus. PR tends to promote broad interest policies rather than special interest policies by thus make more credible economic policies. The average corporate tax rate in PR countries was actually lower in 2017 according to figure from the OECD, 22.9% for PR countries versus 27.2% for winner-take-all countries. Looking at trade production, which economists usually degrade as being bad for the economy, in a study of 147 countries over 23 years, winner-take-all systems have higher tariff than proportional representation. 9 out of 10 of the wealthiest OECD countries are countries with proportional voting system. PR tends to empower ordinary citizens. Countries with proportional system had considerably lower level of income inequality. Consensual political institution which use PR tends to reduce income inequalities, whereas majoritarian institutions have the opposite effect. When proportionality increases, inequality decreases, and PR is associated with greater efforts to promote income redistribution. Research on 24 parliamentary democracies found that the political preference of low-income citizens are better represented in a more proportional system, and the political preference of the rich are better represented in a winner-take-all system. Research on 610 elections over 60 years in 81 countries and found that PR countries garnered higher scores on the United Nations Index of Human Development, which incorporates health, education, and standard of living indicators. Countries with PR spend an average of 4.75% of more on social expenditure than winner-take-all democracies. Electoral system can affect how citizens and government interact and how citizens relate to each other. Using data from the World Values Survey conducted between 1981 and 2010 found that citizens in countries with proportional system tends to show less prejudice towards minority and marginalized groups. Countries with winner-take-all systems scored approximately 44% higher on the prejudice scale than countries with fully proportional electoral systems. PR is strongly correlated with a lower degree of violent events, more political stability, and a lower risk of internal conflicts. Looking at the average military expenditure as a percentage of GDP between 1988 and 2012 and data from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the predict level of military spending for countries with winner-take-all systems was more than twice as high as for countries with fully proportional system. Citizens in countries with proportional representation were more supportive of environmental action and more willing to pay the cost associated with environmental protection. Carbon emissions were rising everywhere. The statistically predicted increase was significantly lower in countries with fully proportional system at 9.5% compared to 45% in countries using winner-take-all systems. Management of the COVID-19 pandemic. Michael J. Rigby have studied how well 42 OECD or European Union countries managed the COVID-19 pandemic in the critical period between May 2020 and November 2020. Trying to explain the difference in COVID impact across countries, they found that neither the health system nor measures of socio-economic inequality helped to explain these differences. What they did find was clear linkage between successful management of the pandemic and political features, including the presence of coalition government, having a female prime minister and a proportional voting system. These features were particularly evident among the countries who showed the lowest increase in COVID death rates per million people from May to November 2020. Among the top 6, 5 had coalition government, 4 had female prime ministers, and all 6 were proportional representation countries. Among the top 14 performance, 12 had coalition or minority governments, including Canada. The US and UK are examples where populist style majoritarian governments have led to comparatively high mortality rates. They conclude that the way the government was led and whether leaders based their decision on scientific evidence and shared the reasoning with citizens had notable effects. Majority governments seeming strong but being more imperative to feedback appear less effective in pandemic management compared to coalition governments effected under proportional system. Proportional representation outperforms winner take all system in almost every respect, in that higher quality of democratic life, prudent fiscal management, higher economic growth, better environmental management, reduced income inequality, higher level of human development, greater tolerance of diversity, a less punitive approach to law enforcement, greater respect for privacy, and lower level of conflict and militarization. So I want and pray for open list proportional representation electoral system should be adopted in our country in upcoming election all over India. Amen.